Hi, I'm Valerie Engelhart, and in this video I am going to be painting a barred owl. This little owl is requested by my daughter and inspired by the barred owl that was sitting outside of her bedroom window and making it very clear that it was there. We have a lot of barred owls in this area, but it seems that they're actually an invasive species, and therefore there have been plans to change the population. I'm not sure if that has to do with my little area, but in case you're interested in such things as habitats and invasive species, apparently here in Western Washington, the barred owl is an invasive species. But right now, we just want to paint, right? So I put in the eye, and notice how small I made that eye. I am working on Arches 9x12 cold press, and I'm using a size 8 round brush by Silver Black Velvet, and it's my favorite because it has that really fine tip. I am going to be using my Rockwell Canada paints, particularly Magic Wizard and, it's like maybe Obsidian Brown or Lapis Brown. Basically, I'm just sticking with like 3 colors, and they're all kind of a variation of brown. I'm gonna stick neutral because it's a barred owl. Well, that's not entirely true. I could have painted this purple if I wanted, but I'm going with the earthy tones. So I just placed the eye. I made it very small because I've got a lot of bird to fill in. And I bled away, I used water to soften it. And then the feathers around its face are white, but I used just a very diluted paint to create shadow and form. And then, using a darker value, so more paint, less water, began to outline the feathers of the face that frame it. And because these are feathers, I'm not painting in continuous strokes. I'm using little dashes and dots. I need texture and I need this broken up. I'm painting fairly small, and that's actually usually a challenge for me. So I am very aware of not painting too big. Otherwise, I'm going to lose a lot of the owl. And on this, I like doing lost and found, so we can see one side of the owl's face very well, and I'm going to leave that other side kind of blurry, a little ambiguous. On the top of its head and the side, I just use a dry brush and just short strokes, short little strokes. And in watercolor, to get the white, you just leave white paper. And I often personally have trouble with animals that have like those speckled patterns where there's like white in between, because I do typically like to work really wet and spray a bunch of water, and that can create, well, it makes it so I can lose the light really quickly. And so it's important when painting these feathers to leave space between them, leave space between your colors to leave the light area. So this is a good exercise for me too. And ever so often you might see me put my fingers up to my paper. I am measuring where things are because I am not working with a sketch, but I do have a picture off to the side. And so I'm measuring like, okay, if the head is this big and the wing is 2.5 heads, and over time, the more you do this, the more it's easier to eyeball it. But there's no shame in, if you need to use your brush or your fingers, just try not to touch the wet paint. So not only do we want to focus on light values and dark values, but it's fun to play with warm and cool. And I love Magic Wizard. My only thing is that it often comes out really yellow. Like, look how I'm using water to lift some of the paint off, and there's like an almost fluorescent yellow underneath. And that yellow is pretty staining, so once it's there, it's there. Now this is a barred owl named for its barred feathers. So I am just doing short strokes, well, longer than around the face, but I'm just doing these really quick strokes and then putting some perpendicular lines to create the bars on the feathers. And then I don't want all of these hard edges, so I'm just going in areas and adding in water to soften things. And like, feathers are super soft. Have you ever touched an owl feather? I found one on a walk once, and I think it was a gray owl feather. Anyway, they're so soft and beautiful. All right, I've moved the camera down so that we can better see what I'm working on. And yeah, this actually looks more like a lapis brown because I can see some of the purple tones coming through. And purple and yellow are complementary colors, so even if both of them are really earthy, because there are those complementary color undertones, it does create more visual interest. So when picking colors, maybe bring that into consideration. Also, I don't know what it is, but I really love working with like purple and yellow together. They make some of the most gorgeous grays. So down there are more of like the wing feathers, those like flight ones. So those bits are really long, one continuous line before adding the bars. And owls can turn their heads like 270 degrees. So even though we are seeing its wing feathers, its head is turned like all the way around. And that is just so cool. I love owls. Bringing it back up, so the area around the face has dried, so I am going in with a much darker value, and all that means is a lot more pigment, less water. Obviously, you'll want to use a darker paint. If I go in with like yellow, for instance, it doesn't matter how thick I get that yellow pigment, yellow will only ever be so dark. And then I added a little more shadow to that eye to give it a little more depth, to set it into the head a bit more. And that's one of the things about painting, I think in many mediums, but especially watercolor, because you have to wait for areas to dry before you go back in. So there's a lot of dancing around the painting. Paint the head, paint the body, come back to the head, come back down to the body. And you really want to pay attention to how wet your paper is. So right now those feathers down at the bottom were still wet, but not like super wet. So I was able to go in with stronger pigment. And while there was a little bit of diffusion, there wasn't very much. So I was able to get a softened line, but it didn't just spread out everywhere and get lost. And it's so funny because right now, watching this video playback, things are looking kind of messy. And yet I know how this painting ends. I know it comes together. So if you're in your messy middle and you're just unsure, it's okay. Step away, take a break, and then come back to it. And sometimes you just have to let the painting dry before you move on. However, for this piece, I'm a rather impatient person. I do this all in one go. So I've grabbed a smaller round brush, my Da Vinci Cosmo Top Spin. It is a size 3, and I'm just adding a little more shadow to that beak to bring it out. And scrubbing a bit because that area around like the cheek of the owl was a little lighter than I wanted. I do want to call out really quickly the left side of the owl, so that would be like its belly. Its belly is much lighter, even though there are some of those like feathers. So I didn't paint an outline. I just flicked my brush down with that magic wizard color, that lighter brown, and our brain can just fill in the information. Oh, that's the belly of an owl, because we see the flight feathers on one side, lighter colors on the other. All right, last step always, sign the piece. And the painting is done. There's my barred owl. So if you liked this video, give this video a like so I know to make more like it. And if there's any subject you want to learn how to paint, let me know in the comments because I am always looking for ways to help. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!